Up and Adam, I'm Jack Tomzak. That is Ben Cruzy.
Hello.
We're talking about an article by Baird Helgeson in the Star Tribune titled Zellers Touts Dayton's Surrender After Shutdown. Candidate for governor Kurt Zellers sent out a release that bragged about his performance during the shutdown 3 years ago.
A centerpiece of his campaign has been that, if I get in a debate with Governor Dayton, it's not the first time I will have faced him.
Kurt's got
sat across the table with him in budget negotiations, and Republicans ended up winning against the governor.
Right. One of Kurt's videos from a few months ago has a clip of Rush Limbaugh giving credit to Kurt for what he did. Regardless of where you are in the governor's race, you have to admit going nose to nose with the governor and not raising taxes is a good thing.
Right.
That's a good thing
for conservatives.
So Baird Helgeson, we've talked about many times on the show before, routinely gets things wrong, and this article is no different.
Right. In the fourth paragraph of this piece, it admits that Governor Dayton wanted more than $2 billion in tax increases on high earners. He actually wanted it raised around $3 billion, but he readjusted himself in negotiation. Zellers and other Republicans refused to raise taxes, which they did. And instead, and this is where Baird Helgeson really starts to not know what he's talking about, instead wanted to borrow money from K-12 public schools and sell bonds backed by the state's tobacco settlement. We have proved both of those things inaccurate.
The governor initially had the idea for the school shift and wanted a much greater shift than Republicans.
Let me explain it this way. The original Republican budget that was passed and vetoed by Governor Dayton had no school shift, had no tobacco bonds. Republicans did not have those in their original budget.
Yes.
So how can you say Republicans wanted that when what they passed didn't have it in there? And yes, the idea of a bigger school shift than already existed came from the governor's office, from Mark Dayton. It did not come from Republicans. Republicans passed a budget without it. Republicans did not want that big of a school shift. And so that was the governor. In order to prevent taxes from being raised, Republicans made concessions to the governor. To say that those concessions were the wants of Republicans is dishonest. It's BS, and it feels like lies. It feels like a lie. And that's why I have to say, Baird Helgeson, are you a journalist? Or do you just reprint whatever the Democrats tell you to print?
That's what I'm wondering. Is he so bad at his job that he just takes whatever they send him, rewords it, and goes with it? Or is he actively trying to help them? Now, the school shift that was the governor's idea, a greater school shift than the Republicans ended up compromising on, is something that the Democrats, Alliance for Better Minnesota, campaigned on effectively in 2012.
Right.
So that
we have audio of Governor Dayton saying of defending the school shift with Esme Murphy on WCCO television immediately after the deal.
If you've got a thought or a comment, give us a call, 651-989-5855. That number again, 651-989-5855. Barb in Egan.
Hey, guys, you are 100% right on
this.
I remember paying really close attention to the budget that year because it was the first year that the Republicans had the majority in both the House and the Senate. And Kurt Zellers just did an amazing job getting all, I think it was 68 Republicans on board. As Speaker of the House, he got them all on board on the budget. And I think that the final indication that he beat Dayton was Dayton's quote at the end of the shutdown when Dayton said, I will agree to sign this budget, but I will never agree with this budget. I think that's the final evidence that Zellers won that one.
Thank you, Barb.
Excellent point.
The next line in the story by Baird Helgeson says something along the lines of what Barb just said. Dayton eventually agreed to accept the Republican plan, though remained sharply critical of the borrowing. Okay.
That's not what he was critical of.
First part of the sentence, Dayton eventually agreed to accept the Republican plan.
Right.
We have already talked about how it was not the Republican plan. What was agreed upon, school shifts, tobacco bonds, were part of the negotiation. Those ideas are brought to the table from the governor. It should say Dayton eventually agreed to accept Dayton's plan.
Right.
Because that's what it was.
Right. You have to compare what You have to see what the governor vetoed to see what the Republicans' wants were.
Right.
The Republicans did not want tobacco bonds. The Republicans did not want a school shift. You cannot say that the government that the governor met Republicans' demands when it was his demands. That Republicans were acquiescing on, so that taxes wouldn't increase.
The second half of that sentence, Dayton eventually agreed to accept the Republican plan, though remained sharply critical of the borrowing. Except if you listen to the interview with Esme Murphy, where he's totally cool with it.
About school shift?
Yeah.
I'll play it again.
One of the aspects of this solution that was arrived at was a deferment of $700 million in school payments. This has been going on now for a number of years, going back to Governor Pawlenty. What does this do to our school systems, and how much pressure does it put on them, and can they continue to handle this kind of pressure?
Well, it's a delay in the payment, so they get their money. There's a delay. We also increased the per pupil aid formula by $50 per student for each of the 2 years of the biennium, which is the first real increase in the per pupil aid, the state funding for school districts they've received in many years. So that will more than provide enough money to offset any additional interest costs if a school district needs to go through that.
So there he said, schools will be fine. We're going to give them more money. Schools will be fine. They did. This is just a delay. Just a delay. Governor, perfectly happy with the school shift. It was his idea.
His idea.
He wanted a 50-50 school shift, and Republicans fought him on it. So you cannot say Republicans wanted a school shift. You cannot say Republicans wanted to borrow money, because that's what the Democrats.